Does anyone want to have a crack at explaining to Dave and I what being trapped in wealth really feels like? I know what it means because I have an element of it in my own personal life. It's when you are, and I wasn't born into anything like wealth, quite the opposite, but through schooling and social life and university, I've got friends who were. And when you're with people who are, I mean, imagine this. It's a great looking book. I haven't read it yet, by Musa Okwonga, who went to Eton oddly, and as well, I say oddly, it's not odd at all, but it's odd that it's all planets aligning on this, because it was only this weekend, oddly, that the book was released, and he wouldn't have known that the Cameron story was going to gather pace this month. But I can't quite imagine what it would have been like to grow up never worrying about basic financial security. I don't mean worrying about whether or not you can be able to buy a big house in the country, or worrying about how many cars you're going to be able to drive, or whether or not you're going to be able to send your children to private school. I mean worrying about the most basic premise of financial security. And remember, I'm well off. I'm privileged. I went to posh school and all of that malarkey. But when I was in my early to mid 20s, I was conscious of the fact that that it was perfectly possible that my ship wouldn't come in, right? And I'd carry on working in a shop, which I enjoyed, and I would never achieve anything like the career success that my dad had achieved. And if that happened, then I'd have nothing. I wouldn't have an inheritance or a big house. Do you see what I mean? And that's the bit that I think you either get or you don't get. That's the wealth trap. It's this idea that you move in a world where survival is never an issue. Even success is never an issue. Security is never an issue. So what is? What do you measure yourself against? And people like David Cameron measure themselves against, people like his father-in-law who inherited a castle and a title and all the trappings that go with it. I think that's what Charles Moore is talking about, but I'm not entirely sure. One thing I do know is that there's not a violin small enough to play a mournful dirge in sympathy with people trapped in the wealth trap, trapped in wealth. Do me a favour.